So I believe Ivana Stojanovic will introduce the next item in the agenda, perhaps.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Dobro jutro svima. I would like to thank you first for being with us today, as this is the first workshop that we, as the project partner in the Mediterranean Biodiversity Biodiversity Protection Community Project, are organizing, of course, together with other partners. Welcome. I would like to thank Maria for giving us guidelines on technical issues and how we will proceed through the webinar. Before maybe presenting the agenda, just to repeat once again that we will have 2 sessions during the webinar, and we will also have one question and answers session. But of course, you are welcome to raise questions in the chat or even after blocks by raising your hand, as we would really like to have a very interactive webinar and to enhance discussion as much as possible. It's true that we have many presentations, but on the other hand, they're really interesting and concerning the moment in Montenegro, that we are in the process of discussing the proclamation of the first marine protected area. It would be really good to participate and give your inputs as you consider as appropriate. So as Maria already said about the microphones, and maybe just also to repeat once again, to me this is really interesting that this webinar will be streamed online through Facebook live. So it's really good. I believe that every project, and I think we can agree that maybe some of the project missed that part of promotion and sharing and transparency, maybe of the capacity building activities. So we have that now, especially taking into account that we were able to organize this webinar only as webinar, so online, since I mean, due to the current situation caused by COVID-19 pandemic. First I would like to say, first I would like to in fact present the agenda. As you received it, we have 2 sessions. In the first session, we will focus on Montenegro and Adriatic, and we will have presentations from partners of the project, but also colleagues from our ministry talking about the situation in Montenegro and the national initiatives addressing climate change. We will also have the representative, the national coordinator of the very important project with which we ensured synergies by first preparing the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community Project, and then also in its implementation, which is the JEF MPAs project. In the second session, which is more specific, focusing on data and tools to monitor, mitigate, and adapt to climate change impacts, the MPAs. Here, I think that this will be also very interesting, and this second session can, promote discussion and be very curious about questions. Maybe just to also inform you how we defined this first, the theme of this first webinar. Basically, as I said, the ongoing JEF MPA project in Montenegro it had many activities and outcomes, but let's say most importantly, it is supporting the proclamation of the first 3 marine protected areas in Montenegro. One of the outcomes was also to consider through surveys with main national institutions and stakeholders, which are the needs in terms of capacity buildings, so meaning workshops, trainings, etc. So in order to ensure complementarities and synergies with them, we have chosen this first theme, and we also defined in general terms the theme for the second and the third webinar, but it is something that we would like also to discuss with you, and maybe in the conclusions of the meeting and recommendations to see if it's something that you would like to hear for the next two webinars in the framework of this project, or you have maybe other suggestions and proposals. So I would just mention it here, and I can repeat it again after in the conclusions. So for the next capacity building events, we were thinking about talking about marine litter pollution in the future MPAs, and also about MPA governance workshop webinar in the future MPAs. The second one, we were planning to organize it in May next year, so May 2021, and the third and the last one in November 2021. But let's see. I hope that when we hear all the different presentations and points of view from different speakers, and also the discussion, maybe we will have also other suggestions and proposals. Just very quickly about the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community projects. It is a project that continues the work that was already started in 2016, and I'm sure that most of you already heard or even participated in the Panacea project, which ended in 2019. So during 2019, the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Tourism had been in touch with the partners from that project, and agreed to be a full partner of the, let's say, continuation of efforts made by Panacea 1, and participate in the preparation of the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community Project. That project aims to ensure synergies between relevant Mediterranean stakeholders, meaning policymakers, civil society, scientific community, managers, and to increase the visibility and the impacts of their project's results. Therefore, the project builds a community of nature conservation stakeholders in the Mediterranean, and also acts as the communication and capitalization instrument of the projects dealing with protection of biodiversity and natural ecosystems. Through its tool, which is the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Knowledge Platform, the project ensures the transfer of projects' outcomes and their dissemination. So, as I said, it brings together key public and private players, mainstreaming management efforts for environmental sustainability and increasing the impact of biodiversity protection projects. Just to mention that projects from biodiversity protection community, there are 15 thematic projects that have been approved since 2016, and all these projects gather in a community which is under umbrella Mediterranean project, as I said previously, known as Panacea, as a horizontal initiative which continues in the MBPC project. Also to mention, as Maria said, that also the declaration of the project will be shared. A link leading to the declaration will be shared with you. So in 2018, a declaration was created in Brussels by project partners, which is the ecosystem-based approaches for biodiversity protection and management. So this project will also continue ensuring the implementation of the declaration. I don't want to take too much time, but I would also like to say that this project is important in terms of the synergies with other projects and activities in Montenegro. I already mentioned, and I would also like to inform you that just 3 days ago we launched the public consultations on the protection study for the first MPA in Montenegro, which is the zone of Platamuni, together with the National Act for Proclamation. It will last for 30 days, and here I'm inviting national stakeholders, institutions to provide comments, suggestions, and participate in online public meetings that will be held to discuss the proposed documents. And I would like also to announce that we're working on the documents for the other two. So we also expect to launch the public consultations for the other two protection studies for the areas of Katic and Platamon, and Stari Ulcin, which are well known to my colleagues from Montenegro. So in this context, this project, the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community Project, is really important as it will ensure synergies, contribute to capacity building, share tools created in the project, and also we included as an activity the mapping of an additional marine area which hasn't been investigated by now, but was suggested in the documents by our relevant national institution, the Institute for Marine Biology. So we are really excited, and we are really also grateful for this opportunity, as also funds for mapping activities are not easy to allocate from the national budget, but also to find from external fundings. We are also very active party to the Barcelona Convention, which is the Convention for Protection of the Mediterranean Sea and the coast. We have implemented many projects also for these first 3 MPAs, which were mainly focused on the collection of data. So the ongoing GEF project complemented the data gaps in order to have a full protection study, and supported the national actors, the Agency for Nature and Environmental Protection and the Ministry to launch the proclamation process. I would also like to mention that in parallel, we are working on the implementation of the marine directive, Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which is our obligation in the framework of the EU accession process under the Chapter 27, Environment and Climate Change. So all these activities together will help us to first fulfill our national targets and objectives, but also our international obligations. And synergies among all the projects is really important for us. To conclude, for us, it's really important to have a fruitful discussion during this meeting, and also to have your feedback and inputs for further capacity building activities. I already mentioned 2 general themes, so please comment and provide inputs on that, but also maybe on further steps that can be implemented at the national level in order to respond to climate change, to address climate change in the MPAs in the future, as this is, let's say, quite new in our country as a theme. Thank you very much. This is all from my side for this introduction. Now I would like to give, so Mireia already activated the button.
I would like Ivana to share the answers, so yes, people just have answers. So let's see what they say about. So here you are. Yeah. So we were asking you about what did you expect from this workshop, and these are your answers, and so you can see it here.
Yeah, this is a nice tool, very interactive.
And we will, well, really want to, we will try then to fulfill your expectations. We are keeping all that in mind. So you can see it here. I will give you, if you want, some seconds to read. So also for speakers to be aware of what your audience is expecting about, but okay, so here
I also see, sorry to interrupt you, I also see some questions here, but they will be responded, I can say, in the future presentation, just in the first session.
Okay. So, okay, we will keep this in mind and also here. And then later on, for people who are asking about the second question, it will come later on. So we will try, we will go again to Mentimeter, but in the future. Okay, so I give you the floor, Ivana, again, and thank you all for your participation.
Thank you very much, Maria. I believe that this tool is nice and interesting. You know, we have presentations and discussion, but it is something in addition to make it more interesting. So now we will start the first session of the meeting, which is the Zoom to Montenegro and the Adriatic. And I would first like to give the floor to Dania Malak from ETC UMA, which is the lead partner of the project, to speak about climate change and cumulative impacts, the ecosystem-based approach. It is a presentation that will be delivered together with Simonetta Fraschetti and Federica Foglini for representatives of the Amare project. Dania, please, you have the floor.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I hope everybody hears me. So yes, thank you very much, Ivana, for the introduction. And I think we all agree that the second phase of what used to be Panacea, now it's called the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community, that I would like to call MBPC for to save time. It was really important to start to engage at different levels. So at the country level, like in the case of the Ministry of Montenegro, to engage and do some territorial actions. So we are very happy to have the ministry on board. And this first webinar, as you mentioned, is a first step into capacity building, trainings, and different training sessions that we would have loved to do right there in Montenegro. But for this reason of the COVID, we had to start through a first webinar. But we really wish that the upcoming ones, we will have the ability to be together, to engage, to do some action on the ground as well, to see hopefully the future MPA and so on. Very well. So welcome everyone. Also from my side, I'm Dania Abdelmalak, and I'm the coordinator of this MBPC project since 2016-2019, and now in its second phase. I will try to share my screen. I was told that it was easy. So let's see if you are able to see it. Do you see my screen, Mireia?
Yeah, perfect, Dania.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Very well. So I'll try to be short, and as mentioned, this presentation is twofold. I'll try to give a bit of an overall overview of what you're doing, mainly in terms of these ecosystem-based management approaches to reduce cumulative impacts, right, in the Mediterranean. And I think that Simonetta and Federica will be moving into more, I would say, practices that have been done at the level of MPAs in that direction. So I have three main messages. I want to give you a bit of more understanding of what is this MBPC around. I saw some of the questions in the Mentimeter that some people were interested in that. So I'll give a short overview on that, then an overview on where we are in the Mediterranean, the role that multiple pressures have and their cumulative impacts, and how we can improve improving the management practices in order to reduce these impacts inside MPAs and outside MPAs.
Dania, excuse me,
Yes.
Can you please share the screen, like full screen presentation?
Yes, do you see that now?
Yeah, perfect now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So the first point is about giving you a bit more of an understanding of what we do in this MBPC community. So since the first phase, so since 2018, it was clear for this community that just focusing all our attention and all the actions only inside marine protected areas will not be as effective as looking at what's happening around them as well, because these are islands in the sea, and if the rest of the Mediterranean is filled with pressures, these pressures will end up impacting the MPAs, and I think there are lots of projects that have already confirmed that. So, so we decided that we will be working on two processes in parallel in order to reach different targets, to reach the different stakeholders, and to ensure that we somehow do a step further in improving the effectiveness of management of biodiversity protection and in ensuring more sustainability in the use of natural resources. So on the one hand, one focus is to work to contribute to reinforcing and improve the management in protected areas, because we think that these are powerful tools for the effective management of biodiversity protection, but they need to be strengthened to ensure connectivity, to ensure that the design is and of the network is improved, and to ensure best practice management. Among what we are doing is to look at different areas, what is happening, and to try to connect different marine protected areas together, of course, with our partners and the advisory board members, such as Mpa and other regional institutions. So that's on the one hand. So looking inside marine protected areas and seeing what is really needed and how we can be useful in that direction. But we are also doing some work beyond marine protected areas, using mainly the ecosystem-based approach that is used across as a management tool to help addressing these transboundary impacts, right? The cumulative impacts and so on. These efforts are important for these new targets of the 2030, the global and regional targets related to biodiversity protection, and that's to improve and increase the ecological connectivity, to increase the network of functional marine protected areas. So ensuring that we look broader than what is now protected is important to know where the sensitive biodiversity is, what needs to be protected, and in which ways. So that's my first point on what we are doing in a nutshell. The second point is, again, to give an overview of where we are in terms of these pressures, how we are looking at them, what impacts there are in the Mediterranean. So a few slides on that point. On the one hand, and that's based on prior studies that we have been doing. I have focused on the Adriatic and Ionian region, where this training was expected to happen. So the main point, I think, and that's really the concept of how we look at things. When we are looking at each of the major pressures that are surrounding us alone, we have much more of an isolated view on the problems. So when we look at climate change, that's part of the main webinar of today. We see, for example, that in a regional context, the Adriatic and Ionian region is quite of a hotspot in terms of the effects of climate change and the impacts of climate change for the nature, for being a closed part of the Mediterranean Sea, where many issues that I think my colleagues later on will be focusing on happen in terms of invasive species and others. I mean, temperature increase and so on. If we look at the pressure coming from fishing, we also have much more of an isolated point of view. So looking at all the pressures together, in one perspective is really important. And that's where the point on looking at the cumulative pressures and their impacts in the region is really key to what we are trying to do. So we need to understand, based on data, based on knowledge, what's happening, to look at a global perspective and to act based on this, I would say, holistic way of understanding what the problems are. So we are supporting in that direction. Ivana already mentioned that we have pending a mapping exercise that we would like to do with the ministry in order to identify that there's some sensitive areas in their coastal and national waters, and to put that to increase the evidence in the region, based on which we would need to address then what are the pressures and how they are impacting and what remedies we have to reduce that. So that's one point. We need to really be looking at the cumulative pressures and their impacts before action. And then also part of that study that we did a few years ago, it was to check from a baseline that we have taken for 2010, what have been the trends in the pressures in the region. And now the study has been looking into the Adriatic ecoregion, and coming from widely available but also somehow validated data, it was clear that looking at each of these pressures that I have mentioned before, that have been assigned and validated by stakeholders as main pressures impacting the Adriatic region, the trends from 2010 until 2017, where we had the latest data back then, everything is showing that the trend is not improving. So we are going into more and more pressured part of the Mediterranean Sea, and the trend is in many cases increasing, and increasing quite high, being aquaculture, fisheries, transport, tourism, and I'm sure that my colleagues that have very good knowledge on the data on climate and temperature in the region would be mentioning the same trends. In a way, we are in a more and more pressured environment, and the role of really effectively having tools and ways to deal with that situation is really critical. So that's the second point. And the third point is about the management practices. So how we are managing the Mediterranean Sea and protected areas so far has shown not to be effective because of for many reasons, because the design of the marine protected areas are not always where they need to be. It's not always in the most sensitive environment, because this is a process that every country looks into it, and there are gaps in that direction. So we have to ensure effective biodiversity protection that ensures the habitat function or the ecosystem function. But there are increasingly available information and increasingly available tools to bend that curve, to ensure that we address these pressures and manage this environment in a more effective way inside marine protected areas, but also outside marine protected areas. I think what we are trying to do here today and the upcoming trainings is to talk to practitioners on the one hand through these trainings and other activities, talk to decision makers, and to ensure that these information and these available tools are there to help that situation. And the tools will be then discussed also in the training session. You could see how many tools there are available, how much knowledge there is, how much information there is, and it's really about connecting these dots together. So just briefly, this is a bit about the mismatch that I was talking about. What you would see in the first map on the left-hand side are these somehow important areas in terms of biodiversity in the Adriatic region. And what you see on the right, I hope you see these green areas are the areas that are protected. And when you see both maps, you could see that not in many cases, the most sensitive biodiversity is protected, and therefore we need to be looking at a system that ensures also taking this sensitivity of biodiversity in consideration in any management that we do for the sea. And on the other hand, and I think that's my last slide, it's a bit about how from the MBPC community we are helping to bend the curve. And here, I tried to put the key terms in terms of what we do inside marine protected areas, what you see on the left-hand side, when you have an area that is defined, designated, and then have a management plan. It certainly needs some capacity building and showing the tools that are available. And here we are in the series of trainings that we are trying to do, and we hope that you engage with all of them. So there are tools, there are mechanisms that would help, that would support in the management activities, and hopefully these upcoming marine protected areas in Montenegro as well. So we wish that this project would help ensuring that you have a good overview on the tools available, that you can have a look at the trainings, and to define together, as Ivana mentioned, what could be the next steps that are more important to you. We also, with MetPan, with SPARAC, and other regional institutions that are part of our advisory board, we are looking into ensuring and mainstreaming these sustainable financing tools to ensure more sustainability in the management and in the bodies of marine protected areas, and of course to ensure through design and mapping activities and knowledge to reinforce and improve the management of marine protected areas. Also some activities that we have outside marine protected areas, and this is something we are testing also in the Adriatic and the Ionian region, on ensuring that we have certain mechanisms that could be effective in terms of transboundary governance. So we have seen in the previous slide about the sensitivity of the I hope you can see the mouse. So these sensitive areas in terms of their ecology and their biodiversity are still not protected, and in a way they need to have different governments talking to each other, different stakeholders talking to each other to ensure other ways of protection. And therefore we have a dedicated working group working on one EPSA, on one of these areas that are already designed for their or designated for their sensitivity, to have some hopefully approaches that are relevant across countries to ensure some discussions and better governance of these sensitive areas. So these are part of the activities that we are doing, not in this training, but in working group discussions that are happening around the Adriatic, where we're trying to put different stakeholders, different representatives from the countries in the Adriatic and the Ionian region to discuss with each other and to prioritize what needs to be done as transboundary effort in that direction. Yes, and I think that's it from my side. So yes, thank you for being there, and I think I will give the floor now to Simonetta and to Federica. I hope you are there.
Ciao, good morning.
Yes,
good morning,
hello,
everybody. And thanks a lot for this very nice opportunity. Federica and me were working within the Amare project. Now I try to share my screen. So this will stop other screen. Yes.
Yes, we can see your screen, Simonetta. Perfect.
Very good. And I put it. Okay. Is it okay? Do you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect, Simonetta.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So as I was saying, we were working within the Amare project, and it is an important opportunity for us to show some result and the potential legacy of the project. So we start from some consideration and Dania was already introducing very much the topic. We are basically, we have a problem in dealing with the management and the protection of marine coastal environment in the Mediterranean, but I would say at European level. We are data deficient. We are data deficient in terms of the distribution of biodiversity. Think that we know that about the 40% of the Mediterranean Sea is basically unknown. We are data deficient in terms of reporting of threats, especially in those areas in which some conservation should be present, like Natura 2000 site and national designated MPAs. We are data deficient also in terms of long-term monitoring and also in terms of effectiveness of management. So basically, in many places, data managers, MPA managers are not very well aware of what is going on in their MPA. So we are in a difficult situation, and I'm used to repeat that the blue growth for sure is an incredible opportunity in the next future. It is the, let's say, the long-term vision of the European Union, but is also a big risk for our marine ecosystem that are vulnerable, are already very fragile, are in peril. So this forecasting about the increase in maritime traffic, aquaculture, touristic frequentation, can be an issue, can be a problem, especially considering the lack of knowledge that we have and I was describing right now. So what we did in Amare. In Amare, we use basically marine protected areas, a selection of marine protected areas as a laboratory experiment where to focus on biodiversity, its distribution, its state, together with the distribution of human uses. And the idea was really to collect fine-scale data, because it is true that these large-scale analyses were of critical importance to depict the scenario, but then if you want to correctly manage your MPA, you need fine-scale data. So what we did basically was to increase very much the information about biodiversity and human uses at the scale that, in our opinion, is that relevant for the management of the Mediterranean MPAs. And here you have just an idea of what we did. So we were starting with a systematic collection of data from oceanography to human uses, so fishery, but also what is going on along the terrestrial component, everything that could be relevant for the managers. And then we combine all this information within that spatial geoportal that will be presented by Federica, and that I think is really a critical tool for managing our MPAs. Then we focus on the two habitats that I think are among the most relevant and the most vulnerable across the Mediterranean Sea, which is Posidonia oceanica and coralligenous formation. So what we did was exactly what Dania was talking about. So focusing not only within our MPAs, but also outside the MPAs. So we adopt the Marine Strategy Framework Directive scheme to monitor this, just an example of what we did for coralligenous formation. So increasing knowledge about distribution, but also understanding the state of this habitat within and outside the MPA. The same consideration apply for Posidonia oceanica. We did exactly the same. And for instance, this is just a result to show you that marine litter in Porto Cesareo, but I can tell you that we found exactly the same result also in the other MPAs. Marine litter is very abundant within the MPA, sometimes, not always, but sometimes even significantly more abundant within than outside. So we have a problem, but now managers know about their problem and they are in the position eventually to solve it. I was talking about the legacy of Amare. I was very happy because we had a number of meetings with the regions, the region Apulia, and now the region is funding a number of projects that have basically the same structure of Amare. So with this intense monitoring, not only inside, but especially outside, because the idea is to incorporate Natura 2000 sites that are transboundary, so partly within the marine protected area, but also partly outside, to extend the management that is already there, that we can improve, but is already there within the marine protected areas, also in those components of the coastal habitat that are already within Natura 2000 sites, but for the moment are without any management. So they will adopt basically the information, but also the structure that the monitoring structure that we were using in Amare, and to me is a kind of very important result. Now we will show you, Federica will present you the Amare Geoportal, that in my opinion is one of the most successful result in Amare to support the management from of our MPAs. Federica, I give you the floor.
Okay, so I will present the Amare Geoportal. I would like to show you a very short video. So Simonetta, if you can link, not there, but there is a link in the slide.
Sorry, I go back.
The video link, down, you see video.
Ah, yes,
yes.
I see it.
Yes.
Sorry for this.
Is a practical demonstration, and I would like to say that the Amare Geoportal was built behind a standard database infrastructure. So this is the big value of this product, I think, for the different MPA that was involved in the project. You see here the different sites. So we implemented one specific geoportal for each MPA. This is the example of Porto Cesareo. You see here the different level of data that we integrated. You see that we have information about administrations, about MPAs, about the different protected sites. We have information about biology, geology, oceanography that could be integrated together, can be visualized, and can be queried by the users. Here you see, for example, the habitat maps, and you see also the geology. And you can, this is a function where you can see also the threads. You can, of course, move the layer up and down, and you see the different pressures that are insisting in the same place, because the most important aspect of this is to have the spatial the georeferencing of the different layers to overlay the different pressures. This is the function to try to compare the difference between the presence of habitats and the threats. You can play with it. In the presentation, there is also the link to the geoportal, and you can, of course, query the features that you can visualize within the geoportal. You just click on a polygon, and then you see the content of the polygon. We also implemented the metadata. That is a very important aspect, to link also this geoportal to different infrastructures, as we did. And the metadata, of course, contain all the information about the data and also the acknowledgement, the data provider. So this was very important for encouraging the people in submitting the data during the project lifespan, and to see their data acknowledged and usable in a platform that is standard for all MPAs. Here you see the possibility of querying the data, so making some filter, for example, to see where is the habitat type that is called merle, and in a very easy way you can find the different polygons representing the merle. You can do the same for Posidonia, you can do the same for all the habitats. So you see also the possibility of making some measurements, and in this sense, all these tools make this geoportal something useful for the marine protected area managers for their day life working. That's why I think was very much appreciated by the people within the MPAs, and that's why we really collected a huge amount of fine scale data. Here you see another example showing you another kind of information that we integrated, the oceanographic information, thanks to our oceanographer, to the partners that were involved in the project. And just clicking on a point, you can see the time series. So you have also the information here about the chlorophyll concentration, for example, on the different points. You can have the same for temperature, for salinity. And this also was very valuable for the people working in the area to have integrated all this kind of information. Here is another example for Torre Guaceto. You see, for example, the possibility of having the monitoring plan. Here you see all the monitoring station within and outside the MPA. This is another important tool. And you can very easily print this map, includes this map in your report, in your projects. This is another simple function that we are showing when you see that you can produce an easy map. I would like to underline that one of the most important aspects of this geoportal is that it's standard for each MPAs, and not only the portal and the functionalities, but also the infrastructure that is behind, that is extremely relevant. So what we created was a standard architecture of a database that was also in line and compliant with the INSPIRE directive. And in the future, what is really we would like to see is maybe to involve other MPAs that could be integrated in this kind of portal in order to have all the MPAs at the same level of, of data integration. For data downloading, yes, the video is finished, and so Simonetta, I think you can stop YouTube. You can find this video in YouTube if you want to see it in detail. Yes, now you can stop. Yes. And come back to the presentation. If you have any question related to this, of course, you can ask to me today. And I would like also to mention the fact that we implemented something similar for Montenegro in a different project, and to integrate some kind of environmental data. And if you are interested, I can even show you later on during the question and answer sections the most relevant points. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Federica. I love this presentation of the geoportal. Some years ago, we were both involved in Coconut and big project at Mediterranean scale, and at that time we started dreaming about filling the Mediterranean in this way, having a tool like this one. Now we are still far from that target, but project by project we are increasing and getting near the target by the end of our life, maybe. In any case, I like to to close this presentation talking about accessibility. So Amare for sure was successful not only for producing this tool. We had several very nice products, and but let's say the philosophy going across the project was trying to make all data accessible, ready for be compared, ready to be used. And in this context, coordinating monitoring is absolutely essential. And it should be conceived to collect the fine-scale data. We really need fine-scale data if we want to improve the management and the conservation of coastal environment. The idea as Federica was saying, is not to create a new database, but to use those that are existent and successful, to avoid these plethora of repository and digital archives that are around. So to arrive to have this homogeneous data collection that will be a critical tool, as I repeat, to make our MPAs really effective. And not only that, because the Marine Strategy Framework Directive is calling for the good environmental status, not only within MPA. So we have to think about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Simonetta and Federica. Very useful, I think, to see how much information there is behind the need of taking a decision to making an action. And this is not something easy to be done and very necessary inside and outside marine protected areas effectively. So thank you a lot. I think this gave a bit of an understanding of the need to really look into data, to dig into the details, to be able to take the right decisions and actions. We are running a bit late. We heard the bell that's activated, so we need to move a bit fast. So I would like to ask my colleagues whether there are any questions that we need to respond to any of the speakers of this session, or we can move to the next presentation.
Well, I would like to suggest, because we are running quite late, that maybe we have just now a few minutes for questions and answers, and then in the end we will have a dedicated session to question and answers. Also during coffee break we can take questions. Thank you very much, Dania, Federica, and Simonetta. This was very interesting. I would just like to repeat what Maria and Serena wrote in the chat, that there is a time control, which is a bell, and please pay attention. In my mind, all the presentations are very interesting, so I don't like interrupting, but if not, we have many other presentations to come, and we will not finish on time otherwise. So let's take questions, a few questions, and for the rest, please type in the chat or save them for the questions and answers part after the second session. To repeat, questions can be raised or through the chat or through the specific let's say possibility of Zoom. So you click participants and then raise hand. So we see that you raised the hand and we can give you the floor.
By now, I'm not seeing any hand raised, so maybe we can go on and just let the question and answer for the question and answer part.
Yes.
Yes, we have one question to you.
Okay.
We would like to know through the poll in Zoom, we would like to know if you had heard about the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community Project in Panacea before. So this will be just a one yes or no question. So that will just very short, and then we can move to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonsoles, because I forgot to show this poll, but thank you.
So you just answer through your screen and submit the answer.
The yes is winning, which is nice. We gave 15 seconds and we finish the poll to continue. So still 10 seconds to vote, and then we can follow. Okay, so you can see the results. Thank you.
Okay, then we continue with the agenda. Now I would like to give the floor to my colleague from the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Tourism, Ms. Daniela Chabarcapa, who is advisor in the Division for Climate Change in the Directorate for Climate Change and Mediterranean Affairs. She will inform us about the current initiatives and ongoing projects to address climate change in Montenegro. And Daniela, please, I would just like to ask you to stick to the time that we agreed in the preparation for the meeting. Please, you have the floor.
Can you hear me, Ivana?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Ivana. Good morning, everyone. Today I will tell you something about, as Ivana said, about the current and future activities, and my presentation have two parts, about the information about the strategic, legislative and institutional framework, and the second part is about the ongoing and the future projects. When it comes to the strategic framework on climate change, the government of Montenegro adopted the national strategy until 2030 on 17 September 2015, and as a part of the strategy, we are adopted intended national determination contributions to reduce GHG emissions. And this contribution we submitted and prepared for the UNFCCC Secretariat. Our NDC is 30% reduce GHG emissions up to 2030 compared to the base 1999 year. Also, Montenegro became a member of United Framework Convention on Climate Change 27 January 2007. And in this part, we have obligation to prepare the reports from the UNFCCC. And for now, we are prepared the third national communication of Montenegro on climate change and the second biennial update report of Montenegro. And also currently we are preparing the project proposal for another reports. Very important is the national strategy for transposition, implementation and enforcement of the acquis in field on environment and climate change for the period 2060-2020. And also on July 2060, we adopted this strategy. And in 2018, government of Montenegro adopted the negotiation chapter on 27, and in this part we have many obligations to close this chapter. When it comes to the legislative framework, we ratified the law on ratification of Paris Agreement, and our intended national determination contributions became national determination contributions, and now we are in the process of revised NDC. Also, on 2018, we adopted law on ratification of Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, and also Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. And very important for us is the law on protection against the negative impacts of climate change, and the law represents the basis for establishment of the national system for monitoring, reporting and verification of greenhouse gases. The operation of the emission trading system, which will ensure a sectoral distribution of efforts to reduce emissions outside the emission trading system. Moreover, the law represents the basis for enhancement of issues of the use of ozone depleting substances and fluorinated gases. And also, in accordance with this law, we have obligation to prepare the 14 bylaws. For now, we are prepared 6 rule books and 1 decree. When it comes to institutional framework, the Ministry of Sustainable Development and Tourism has a key responsibility institutions, and also for the policy making in this field, and also to preparing and adopting all relevant regulations on climate change. We have a very good cooperation with other institutions such as Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Ministry of Transport and Maritime Affairs, Environmental Protection Agency, Institute of Hydrometeorology and Seismology, Statistical Office Monstat, especially in the part of preparing the GHG inventory. local governments, National Council for Sustainable Development and Integrated Coastal Zone and Climate Change is very important for us. And in this council, we formed the Climate Change Working Group. This group has 4-time meetings in year before the regular meeting of National Council, and a member of this group is very important and give us all needed support and give us opinion about the strategic documents and projects in field on climate change. Now I will tell you something about the section 2, about the future and ongoing projects. When it comes to review processes of the national determination contributions, with the support of the United Nations Development Programs, we are preparing some document about the revised our NDCs. The review involves an overview of existing measures, sectors, and greenhouse gases, especially in the light of the new data in development of GHG inventories and projections. Moreover, all national and sectoral strategies, policies, and action plans will be revised. Also, review will include the climate change adaptation measures and also some issues about the gender equality. In addition to the above mentioned, also we are prepared some analysis for financial assessment for the future measures and actions. And also when it comes to preparedness plan for cooperation with the Green Climate Fund and development the national program of priority activities, we prepared a document aimed at defining a list of potential programs and projects that can contribute to development of Montenegro based on low greenhouse gas emissions, negative impacts of climate change, which meet the criteria for obtaining the support of Green Climate Fund. Also, when it comes to the project about a natural solution for a resilient society in the Western Balkans, this project started in cooperation with the Regional Office for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, IUCN, and this project will be a good opportunity to analyze national ecosystem management, biodiversity policy from a climate change perspective and adaptation indicators, but this project is at the beginning. And also very important for the mitigation part in climate change is national energy and climate plans in Montenegro. The aim of the project is to strengthen the institutional capacity for integrated planning in the fields of climate change and energy, and support for the processes of preparation of the first national energy and climate plan in Montenegro. Also in this part we have support from GIZ. And also by amending the law on the energy, which is under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Economy, NECP will be recognized in the national system. When it comes to the future projects, after we are adopted our law on climate change, we have obligation to prepare the national adaptation plan and also low carbon development strategy. From the support of United Nations Development Program, we are prepared some project proposal from National Adaptation Plan, and the project proposal was approved by the GCF in late October. Very important in this project is because very important project because it covers 4 sectors: health, tourism, water, and agriculture. And this is the very important sectors and the most vulnerable sectors in Montenegro when it comes to adaptation part on climate change. Also, when it comes to the low carbon development strategy, within the IPA 2 program for the period 2060-2020, the development of, we are prepared some proposal, but the tender procedure was cancelled due to the new situation regarding COVID-19. In this regard, this strategy will be delegated under IPA 3 program. Also, strengthening the Montenegrin national determination contributions and adaptation actions within the framework of transparency. through the initiative for capacity building for transparency, CBIT project. Ministry also in cooperation with the United Nations Development Program prepared a project proposal. The project will focus on the strengthening of institutional capacities that are responsible for the mitigation and adaptation policies and measures, as well as use the collected data for the GEG inventory and prepare national inventory system. This project is very important for us because we developed concept for establishing MRE system in Montenegro, and this project will be good basis to establish this process in the country. Now we are preparing a project proposal for the third biennial update report of Montenegro and climate change, and also for the fourth national communication of Montenegro and climate change. And that's it from my side. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Daniela, for this overview. You gave us a really nice comprehensive overview of all that we are doing at the national level related to climate change. Now, I would like to ask very briefly if there are questions regarding this presentation, reminding that also during coffee break and in the dedicated question and answer session of the webinar, we will have the opportunity to discuss more each of the themes, each of the presentations from today. So is there any question now? I don't see anyone asking for the floor through the raise hand.
Me neither.
And no one in the chat. Okay, so concerning the time, taking into account the time that we are a bit late, let's continue with the presentations, and then let's try to have more of a discussion in the questions and answer session. Okay, no one asking for the floor. Thank you very much, Daniela. Then now I would like to invite Mr. Vasily Bushkovich, who is the national coordinator for the ongoing GEF project on marine and coastal protection, the one that I also mentioned in the introduction part. He's our colleague with a long experience in the biodiversity protection field, who working for the Agency of Nature and Environment Protection of Montenegro. He will inform us about creating and empowering marine protected areas, status and training plans. And after Vaso, we will hear from a representative of MPA Networks, Marianne Lang. So I would both ask you to keep the time as much as possible. Thank you, Vaso. You have the floor to share your presentation, please.
Thanks a lot, Ivana. Hello and good morning from my side. As announced, I will present the status and trends in concerning marine protected areas in Montenegro, with a focus to training plans we had before and we are planning to do. Just to check, is the presentation okay? Can anyone see what is on the screen?
We can see it perfectly.
Yeah, we can see.
If you could increase your volume a little bit, that would be great.
Volume, yes. Is it okay now? I speak more loud.
Better, thank you.
Okay.
And that's also full screen presentation.
Full screen F.
Thanks.
I'm pressing F5, it doesn't work. View, full screen.
It's in the u donjem desnom uglu imate kao treći po redu.
Oh, for me. Okay, that's it. Yeah. So in the presentation, I will cover only 3 issues, just to present the mission of the project, then turn to trainings we already provided in the year first, and then trainings we are planning to do in the year 3. Now we are in the year 2 of the project implementation. Concerning the mission of the project has 2 components. First one is dealing with the protection of the valuable coastal and marine biodiversity assets and establishing of the subsystem of integrated coastal and marine protected areas. It's like a bureaucratic phrasing of the activities that are going to establishing of the marine protected areas, because of the position of these marine protected areas that are covering not only marine but also part of the coastal habitats and species. These we formulated the type of that marine protected areas as integrated coastal and marine protected areas. The work on the component 1 should be done, and it is done already in compliance with national and international requirements, but with a particular respecting procedure of establishing CMPAs or MPAs in compliance with the national legislature. At the first place, Law on Nature Protection from 2016. Second component of the project that we are just entering is dealing with the management effectiveness in these MPAs. These 3 priority MPAs were identified before project launched. It was identified in several national documents, but also in the project document for implementation of the project. The sites are Platamuni, that's the name of the first site. The other one is Katic, and third one is Stari Ulci. And these 3 sites are presented at the map on the right side of the screen. Also, together with these important assets, areas important for conservation as marine protected areas, the project is also dealing with other components of the biodiversity in coastal and marine part of so-called project research or project area. In terrestrial, in coastal part, it comes from the seashore up to 400 meters elevation above sea level, while marine part is covering coastal waters from the seashore up to 50 meters depth. It was like a short introduction to general overview of the project, but now I will focus to and draw your attention to project achievements, what we've done already. The first, in the component 1, we provided the survey campaign. It's in fact inventory campaign in the project research area in coastal and marine, and the inventory is completed. And in the inventory we included methodology for the survey, provided the trainings that are needed for implementation of gathering of data from the field in both in coastal, terrestrial, and marine part of the area. And then after that, we created a data set. That's the wording from the project document, but that's the usual geodatabase composed of shape GIS files. But coming back to the data gathering, we used available techniques and sources for gathering, for collection of data, since the lack of data or data deficient mentioned as a difficulty for whole area in the previous presentations. So for in marine part, we used side scan sonar for hydrography characterization for sea bottom relief. Then we engaged ROV and also direct dives. In the terrestrial part, we used recent aerial photos instead of satellite images, that were more precise, more accurate. And also in both cases, actually in the coastal part, we applied directly new techniques for data collection by filling in data forms, inventory data forms right at the site, right at the place of the collection. It was done in tablet devices on the Fulcrum application. That is one of the available Android applications for entering data at the field, and it was done online. And later on, after collection of all data, we provided processing of the data, mapping based on the available georeference points used for the collection, and after that, verification by experts, professors that were more advanced in the scientific fields than our experts were. Along with the survey campaign, we supported numerous supporting documents that are important for implementation of the project activities. First one is the biological characterization of the project research area that included all available data from the previous projects, but also data we collected in the project. In terms of the previous data, we provided the assessment of the gaps and made the inventory plan for the inventory of the fieldworks. In terms of communications, we have a steering committee advisory working group, but also produced the communication strategy. And then final is project achievement that is key and important for this project is the production of the studies on nature protection for those 3 MPAs mentioned before, Platamuni, first one, and we prepared draft study and act on proclamation. And as Ivana said in the introductory note she gave us, we launched the public hearing for Platamuni. For the other 2 sites, Katic and Stari Ulcin, studies on nature protections are in the preparation, they're ongoing, and we expect the finalization of the studies very soon, and then launching separated public hearing procedures for those 2 sites. Along with these documents and activities we produced the general framework documents, like national planning framework for the network of coastal marine protected areas. We prepared a draft of the document, and the document is important for providing a framework for current and future establishing of these marine protected areas that we identified as separate from classic marine protected areas and the other coastal protected areas, because they are comprising together coastal and marine part. And what is important for this presentation, and we did a list of needed trainings and developed the 2 training models that we will implement, we will execute in this project. That is important to mention now because of the interest of other organizations to take part in the future trainings related to marine protected areas. I've categorized these activities. This is just an overview of the work done that was presented before. So we have the once again campaign, inventory, production of the supporting documents, and activities related to the proclamation of MPAs. The second session in this presentation is on the trainings we provided so far. The the first training we provided in the year one, the first year of the project implementation, was on the inventory of habitats and species. The training was provided for two groups of experts, one for species and the other for habitats for terrestrial part. While for marine parts, experts were trained together for both for habitats and for the species, because of the specifics that marine biodiversity has. And coming back to the terrestrial parts, speaking by numbers of people trained, we trained 8 habitat experts and 10 species experts, while for marine part of the trainers, it's important to mention that trainers were from the region, and for marine part, they are from Italy, and for marine part, we had 5 experts trained for marine habitats and species that include 2 senior and 3 junior experts. The point of the training is provide the preconditions for successful inventory of Natura 2000 in compliance with the Natura 2000 requirements. Along with the classic training for inventory for habitats and species, we also did because additional trainings that were individual based for the experts not familiar with GIS in particular, because of the processing and mapping of the data collected at the field included drawing in GIS softwares available. The polygons, that's the jargon term for drawing of the local area of distribution for both for habitats and for the species. The printouts of the maps are down, first one for habitats, and it's a cover of the habitats inventorized, means the area that is covered by inventory, and down there is the other print screen that is this is from GIS, from our database. That's for the species total cover. For trainings we plan to do, we did first the questionnaire survey with the stakeholders relevant for marine protected areas or integrated coastal marine and protected areas, and provided a number of trainings that our stakeholders identified as important for them. In total, we identified 22 possible trainings related to marine protected areas. And obviously, 2 groups of them were, let's say, voted as more important than others. The first group is related to management planning, and most of the people voted for the management planning and production of the management plans with the zoning plans as important training for them. And the other group is for sustainable financing. And these 2 trainings we picked up from the list of all trainings as important for us because of the needs presented in the questionnaire, but also for the activities we plan to do up to the end of the project. And these two trainings were elaborated in the program for training as a module. And yes.
So sorry to interrupt you, but I would like to ask you to finish because we are really late. I'm sorry. It's just if you can in 1 minute finish the presentation, if that's possible. I know that you're about to finish. Still, sorry. Thanks.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, even for warning me. I will, continue. I will capacity to speak a lot, but make it shorter. The both trainings for management planning and financial planning are 4-day programs as modules, and they will include international experts as trainers from the region, particularly from Croatia and Italy and Slovenia, and also local experts we have for particular issues. And I wouldn't misuse your time and attention and finish the presentation and ask for the questions whenever you want, now after the presentation or in the session devoted to the questions. Thank you.
Vasily, thank you very much for your presentation, and I apologize once again for asking you to move faster, but it's just that we are quite late, and with online platforms we need to plan the time exactly as scheduled. Now I see in the chat from Trio Mare, I see fisheries management in MPAs, please more reference. I'm not sure if that I understand the question, but I guess that it is an input to organize more trainings or that on that, or if Trio Mare can just explain. I can just maybe say, and Vaso can complement that for the first protection study in Montenegro, we have had a lot of discussion with the national institutions, in particular Institute for Marine Biology and Ministry of Agriculture, which is in charge of fisheries, about how to plan protection zones and how to regulate fisheries under this protection. And what was very useful for us was an online meeting with the protected area Telaščica from Croatia, where they explain their approach to fisheries. But we expect much more to come on this theme during the public consultations. You're welcome. Thank you, Trio Mare. I suggest that we continue with questions in the chat during the break and in the session dedicated for questions and answers. And now to proceed with the presentation from MPA Network, Ms. Lang. Please, you have the floor, and I also apologize to you, but please keep the time if you can finish your presentation in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will try to do my best. So hello, everyone. I am Marianne Lang, and I'm project manager at Mpa, which is the network of MPA managers in the Med. I will now quite briefly present you the MPA Networks Project. And spoiler alert, our project does not target climate change directly, but we do make the link with other ongoing initiatives on this topic, like MBA Engage that you will hear after. And the activities I will present you now somehow link to the topic of interest, obviously. So in very few words, the MPA Networks Project intends to strengthen and to empower networks of MPA managers at different levels in the Med. And for this project, we decided to target several key topics for the manager. First of all, the global question of management effectiveness, but more specifically, the management of small-scale fisheries, the conservation of mobile species, and the development of sustainable financing mechanisms for MPA. So I was very glad to see the presentation of our colleagues before, because you can see that some of the topics were also raised in Montenegro, so that's great. Okay, so I will go quickly on that. This project is led by Mpa and gathers 9 other partners, of which 5 are located in the Adriatic. We have Torre de Serrano and Torre Guaceto MPAs, Strunjan Landscape Park in Slovenia, Biennial National Park in Croatia, and INCA, the Institute for Nature Conservation in Albania. And I can see that some of my colleagues are present today at this webinar. We can move on. So we can move on if you want, Mireia. Okay, thank you. So you can see here in this diagram the main activities of our project, and I will now make a focus on two of them. So among our priorities, we want to ensure long-term MPA capacity building and to support long-term networking at national, sub-regional and Mediterranean levels, but also on key topics. We can move on. So first of all, networks of MPA managers are very important and very useful. And personally, I have been directly observing it since a decade now. So MPAs networks are considered as a cornerstone to help improve management effectiveness of MPAs. There are successful platforms addressing common management and conservation challenges too. We can move on. So throughout the project and beyond, MedPan will promote and build synergies with other networks of MPA managers. And as I already said, in the framework of our project, we'll make the link between the national, the sub-regional and the Mediterranean levels. So the partners of this project will directly support the establishment or strengthen the operation and the sustainability of networks. And during this project, we will also reflect together on challenges of networks, on the mutualization of our protocols and tools to support the creation or strengthening of networks. We can move on. So I wanted to make a quick zoom on two initiatives in the Adriatic. First of all, with the Torre del Cerrano MPA in Italy, that will support the transition from the Adria-PAN to Adrian-PAN network, to extend the network to the Ionian Sea for environmental continuity, but also for consistency with the Adriatic Ionian macro region and its strategy. They will also evaluate the transition to a legal form in order to represent an even stronger and active reference point in the Adriatic. So if you can just come back to the other slide, because the other example is about Biennial National Park in Croatia, who will support the prefiguration of Croatian National MPA Network. And in this initial phase, they will include technical meetings, trainings, and communication activities. They already organized the first face-to-face meeting last September, which gathered Croatian MPAs manager with the objective to discuss conservation challenges, but also networking possibilities. And finally, regarding our capacity building strategy, a coordinated regular training program with a really strong operational focus is developed for Mediterranean MPAs on targeted issues, so fisheries, mobile species, and financing. And 6 training modules in total will be designed and implemented during the project with the objective of building the operation skills of 4 MPA staff. And MedPan will undertake the overall coordination of the trainings. And 3 MPAs, Brioni, Pocro, and Zakynthos, they will act as training centers, and they will be involved in the development and the implementation of training modules, which focus on topics in line with their own experiences. So the training modules developed and tested during the project, they will be integrated into a MedPan training permanent catalog, and the modules will be repeated over time after the project. So in addition to the training modules developed within this project, this catalog will integrate additional modules on other topics that will be developed by MedPan, but also by other partners. And as an example, and to make the transition with the next session of the webinar, trainings on climate change adaptation strategy for for MPAs will be developed in the framework of the MPA Engage project and will integrate later on the catalog. So I hope I was concise and thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think that all the presentations presented by now were very interesting and would deserve much more time and discussion, but let's try to adapt as much as possible. So now we were planning to have a break, and before announcing some things for the break, is there any question for regarding this presentation? I haven't seen. Brava, Marianne. We have from Francesco De Franco. Okay, let's now break. According to the agenda, we were supposed to break for 15 minutes, but if you agree, I would like to suggest that we break for 5 minutes. During that break, a video will be shown, and also during the break you can post your questions so that the speakers from the session 1 can look at them and answer them through the chat or even orally in the session questions and answers session. I would before starting the break, I would like to ask you to turn on your cameras because Mireia, sorry, our colleague from MedCities, she will take the group photo. And after that, in the chat, she will also share the declaration that we were mentioning in the introduction, the declaration of the project for you to sign it. So please, activate your cameras and let's have the group photo, and please, if you can, stay with us during the break because we will have the video and also maybe we can exchange some questions.
Okay, so I will take the picture. I share with you the link to the declaration so you can read it and most important thing, sign for it. And then I will share during this break another nice video from Montenegro. So please just look at the camera, smile. I will take several pictures, so maybe you will hear like the sound. I take some of them because you are, as you see, in 2 screens, so I have to change the screen and try to catch you when you are not closing the eyes, so that's not that easy. So sorry if you see one of these pictures and you are with the eyes closed, that's not. Okay, I think we have it for now. I will share with you the video and don't forget that you have the declaration link in the chat and see you in a few minutes. Thank you so much. And you can turn on your camera if you want during the break.
Thank you.
Koje to prirodne sile stvaraju ovakve oblike pod morem? Kakvi su to podvodni pejzaži, prirodne pojave i oblici života? Da li su u pitanju neke nama nepoznate tajne prirode ili su to možda dijela ljudskih ruku nekadašnjih civilizacija? Tunja, zlatna nit Budvanskog zaliva. Tunja je podvodni sprud koji se u širini od 30 do 50 metara proteže od slovenske plaže do ostrva Sveti Nikola, promjenljive dubine od 1 do 2 metra. Pravac pružanja tunje je u smjeru sjever-jug, dužini od gotovo 1 nautičke milje. Lokalno stanovništvo često kaže da se u danima izražene oseke moglo morem do koljena pješke preći sa ostrva na skoro same slovenske plaže. Danas to svakako nije moguće, ali ovaj nesvakidašnji sprud i dalje za svoju istoriju vezuje razne priče. Jedini kulturno-istorijski spomenik na ovom mjestu predstavlja crkvica na ostrvu Sveti Nikola, za koju određeni autori tvrde da je podignuta na groblju malteških vitezova stradalih od kuge, dok Don Krsto Ivanović u svojim analima 1650. godine navodi da se ne zna ko je gradio crkvicu na ostrvu. Tunja kao impozantan sprut zajedno sa ostrvom Sveti Nikola i slovenskom plažom formirala je neobično smirujući akvatorij, bez jakih i nepredvidivih morskih struja. Očigledno su to bili idealni uslovi za formiranje podvodne flore i faune, koja se samo djelimično može sresti na drugim lokalitetima ovog dijela obale. Tunja je prebogato stanište brojnih mekušaca, školjki, riblje mlađi koja tu obitava. Hobotnice, sipe, gambori, škampi, murinje, grujevi, krnje, luštre, lebraci, drhtulje i raže, sargići, šparovi, ukljate, mačkulje i druge ribe. Prepoznaju se također i mnoge vrste morskih puževa i školjki, senžak ili lepeza, kamenice, prstaci, srebrnice, palasture, turbani, kao i brojne vrste bodljokožaca, morski ježevi, krastavci i morske zvijezde. Zbog strukture morskog dna sa puno kamenja i pijeska, ovo mjesto predstavlja prirodno mrijestilište hobotnica. A tamo gdje ima hobotnica u velikom broju, ima i brojnih drugih vrsta kojima je hobotnica omiljena hrana. Tu su prije svih krnje, murinje i grujevi, ali i ostale vrste koje vezuju svoj život za najznačajniju biljku crnogorskog podmorja, morsku travu, muravu. Livade ove morske trave, čiji je naučni naziv Posidonia okeanica, predstavljaju najproduktivnije stanište u Sredozemlju i nemjerljivo podvodno blago prirode. Uz samu obalu plivaju jataci pola u potrazi za hranu na površini, dok nijedan novi posjetilac ovog mjesta ne može promaći budnom oku pirki. Dublje prema livadama Posidonije jata salpi grickaju vrhove ove trave, koja predstavlja njihovu omiljenu hranu. Uz samu površinu plivaju jata iglica, gdje god da pogled skrene, može se vidjeti nešto zanimljivo. Najbrojnija vrsta riba na području Tunje svakako su crnelji ili makazice, sitne crne ribice koje se uvijek kreću u jatima. Velika frekvencija motornih čamaca i skutera, kao i miris benzina, regulisani izlov ribljeg fonda, ribolov dinamitom, neregulisani ribolov sa podvodnim puškama, činili su da ovo milenijumsko stanište podvodnog svijeta sve više gubi svoja biološka svojstva. Iz tog razloga važno je da se u stručnu zaštitu buduće promijeni odnos ljudi prema ovom sprudu i da se pokuša uraditi sve što je moguće, ne bi li Tunja sa svojom okolinom održala važnu biološku ulogu koju ima za podvodni svijet ili za ljude. Tunja u prirodnom i u vizualnom smislu predstavlja platnu nit Budvanskog zaljeva.
Thank you, Mireia, for showing this video. I just missed to announce it maybe before it started. It was provided to us by our colleagues from the Public Enterprise for Coastal Zone Management, which prepared this video in cooperation with NGOs and also maybe to mention our colleague who is also with us today, Mr. Dusan Varda from Medsem NGO, who also filmed this video and had other contributions for its preparation. So yes, we are very glad to show it during this coffee break. Yeah, I haven't activated my camera. In the coffee break, we were also planning to show another video from EBM. Sorry, Mireia, can you just tell me how long is that video? So if it's just a few minutes to see if we can show it now, if not, to start the second session.
It's almost 3 minutes and I will go for next session. Maybe we will put it at the end just in case. And yeah, I'm sharing with you the link so for the declaration, and we'll see if we have time to show the video later on.
Okay, thank you very much. So Mireia just posted in the chat the declaration. You can read it and sign it, please. I'm sure that all of you support this initiative. When you read, it's very relevant and important for our Mediterranean region.